As I look into the crystal ball, I'm going to give you 8 points of where I think we're going. Number one, I think Trump is going to cut taxes and regulation. I think Doge is going to help shrink the size of the federal government. We're now projecting $1 billion a day in savings of fraud, abuse, and waste. Number two, I think that good fiscal policy is going to now lead to record S&P 500 profits, profits that you never thought were possible. Best analysts on Wall Street are projecting 320 now for 2026, which multiplied by 21 is about 6,700 points on the S&P, about 8 to 9% higher than where it trades today. Because of that, number three, the S&P, I believe, is still fairly valued, not overvalued. It's not completely undervalued either. It's not a massive, massive value like it was in 2010 or 11 or 12, but it's not overvalued. I don't think long-term you're going to get hurt buying stocks at 20 to 21 times forward earnings. Number four, inflation is a lot more stubborn than people realize. A lot of wealthy people are sitting on stockpiles of cash. They're spending like there's no tomorrow. If you don't believe me, just look at Ferrari. Ferrari just sold a record number of cars at an average price of $550,000 a car. If you think the top 1 or 10% are slowing down, they're not. That's inflationary. But by the way, it's good for the rest of the economy. So you should want that to continue. Number five, I think federal funds rate is going to basically stay where it's at. I think you're going to wake up about a year from today. You're not going to see a ton of movement on interest rates. Number six, I think the 10-year is going to price in no recession, thanks to good fiscal policy. Now, I think you could see the 10-year rise to possibly 6 or 6.5%. So be careful with long-term bonds. I think you got to be really, really careful here. Number seven, I think markets are going to have a panic attack in the short run if the 10-year spikes, and we're probably not looking at a 20% correction. That's usually only going to happen in a recessionary environment or a pre-recessionary environment. I think rather what you're going to see is maybe 10% or 15%. That's very common. We have a 10% correction every 2 years. Statistically, we had one in 2023, so I think you're probably looking at one in 2025. If we correct 10%, this is a significant buying opportunity. But remember, you can't time this thing out because we may be correcting already from 6,500 points or 6,700 points on the S&P. And so a 10 or 15% correction makes the S&P undervalued or a really good. Well, if you're in it today at 6,000 or 6,100, you have no business trying to time this. You're already in. Why would you try and get in and get out? So rather what you do is ride it up. You're going to have a correction. You know it's coming. And if you got a little more cash at that point, put it to work. But there's no sense in trying to time this thing. And so in the end, this is my last point, number 8, I believe all these things added together are going to produce equity returns of 10 to 12% as far as the eye can see.